Sonic Generations, a game that's easily one of, if not my favorite game of all time. I've spent countless hours on this thing, whether being on my old PS3, that one weird version on the 3DS, and of course the godsent but ironically outdated PC port. I'm sure most of you know or at least have heard of Sonic Generations. It's what I consider to be the best Sonic game to date, not counting my beloved Sonic GT. With the release of Sonic X Shadow Generations, to say I was eager to see what the new Shadow campaign had to offer would be an understatement, because at the time of writing this portion of the script, I haven't even played the damn thing. I took it upon myself to do something basically everybody has done at one point, but with a twist. Ranking every stage in Sonic Generations, except this time, I'll be including the new stages from the Shadow Generations portion of the game. So to recap, the modern and classic stages from base gens will be in this, as well as both Act 1 and Act 2s for Shadow Generations. No challenge acts, no bosses, just main stages. Spoiler alert, this video will upset you. If you guys enjoy, please like and subscribe, as YouTube is genuinely horrible at recommending my videos to people, so the best way you could help out with that is by simply subscribing. It helps a lot and you can unsubscribe later if you want. Without further ado, let's get into it. While there is no strict criteria or scoring system in place for these rankings, I think that'd be overdoing it. There are some arbitrary things that will aid in a level ranking higher or lower on my list. One thing you'll be hearing a lot throughout this video is the inclusion or absence of flow. Flow is what I consider to be one of, if not the most important aspects of a Sonic level. Flow is the ability to maintain speed without interruptions, or interruptions. Flow is the ability to maintain speed without interruptions, or interruptions that act as slowdowns or obstacles. If a level allows you to really keep up to this flow state, it's going to be a lot more memorable in my eyes. Because in my opinion, a flow state is the most rewarding thing you can achieve in a Sonic game. Another thing, spectacle. Spectacle isn't a necessity, and it's not even something that has to be a bombastic set piece. It can range from things like the gun truck chase to simply the incredible view and visuals of a certain stage. While there's a bunch of other important small intricacies that decide my ranking, I don't find talking about them that important, as they won't be the basis for my placements. Okay, now let's start at the bottom. Starting at D tier, this tier is exclusive to only 2 zones, being the only zones in the entire game I actively dislike. Headlining the D tier, this may be a controversial pick, number 30 is Classic Seaside Hill. I know people were expecting Planet Wisp at the bottom, but I'll get to those in due time, just you wait. Seaside Hill Act 2 to me is one of the worst water levels in the franchise. Most water levels are easily redeemed by the fact that if you're good at the stage, you'll be able to avoid the water routes entirely. While that's mostly true here, there are parts where you're forced into the water. The water sections in this level are horrible. They kill the pacing, there's no sense of speed whatsoever, and while that Hydrocity section was a neat reference, I didn't actually find it that fun. The upper paths are nothing to write home about, as they feel like the peak of bare-bones classic Sonic gameplay. I wasn't even a big fan of that big wheel thing chase at the end. I don't know, it all felt very bland to me. Number 29 is Classic Planet Wisp. While not as talked about as negatively as its modern counterpart, I'd argue this one is worse in about every way. With the modern counterpart, I'd say it has some saving graces that I'll get to, but everything here is so just not fun. There's not a great sense of flow. You wouldn't think that, considering the gimmick of the stage, the Pink Wisp, is all about going fast. It's how they execute this playstyle that leaves much to be desired. I thought the puzzles, or whatever you want to call it, were huge pace breakers in every sense of the word. Stop and use the gimmick of the stage, then you can move forward. And when you end up using the Pink Wisp for speed, I don't know, it didn't feel as in-depth enough to feel satisfying. All it is essentially just a manually activated dash pad that you have to charge for a second. I say that because even though on paper it's just the spin dash had depth because you could pull off these insane skips and optimize runs very well. Where with this, the sections it's used in are very safe, so there's not much experimenting you can do with it. Therefore, it's limited by its environment. This is going to be a long video. Now, headlining the C tier at number 28 is Classic Chemical Plant. This is where stages get okay, just decent, it's alright, it's probably the tier I have the least to say about also. Why is Chemical Plant Classic here? Because I think it's boring. There's not a single gimmick or something like Planet Wisp to rant about, so this just leaves it being boring, and nothing else. The water routes are boring, the top routes are okay, it's just boring. Number 27 is Classic Speed Highway. Things start to get a little better here. There's a decent state of flow that makes it pretty enjoyable, but after the stage is done, I couldn't tell you a single thing about it. It's just very uninteresting to me, especially compared to its modern counterpart. Number 26 is Classic Green Hill. This one's not bad. Second verse, same as the first. It has decent flow, but it's just too basic for my liking. The flow, however, gives it the edge over Speed Highway for sure. I mean, it is pretty damn fun to chain together tight jumps at high speeds, and that's something you'll be doing constantly in this short stage if you want to stay on the top path. Number 25, Modern Planet Wisp. Oh boy. I'm gonna need you guys to hear me out on why I genuinely don't think this thing is the spawn of Satan. First off, we all know that the opening is an absolute banger. The environments, the sense of speed, and maintaining said speed, the narrow platforming bit, it's all great fun. But you're not here for that. We know that. First off, the rocket. I have no defense for it either. It's stupid and boring and not fun, and fuck you. About a minute in, you are sent into a 2D section that spans the rest of the level basically, and this isn't a short level by any means. Your first run could net you an average time of around 9 minutes. However, once you get used to the layout and do a few runs in practice, I actually think the stage becomes pretty damn decent. It's never a stage I'm frothing at the mouth to return to by any means, but you can seriously cut the stage down to about 4 minutes in just a couple of runs. I think the negativity towards this stage is caused by an inherent bias towards it that makes replaying it sound like a nightmare. When people do get to it, they go in with the mindset of, I hate this. They get reckless, they don't try to adapt to the stage's merits, and therefore get upset when they mess up and take 9 minutes. Now, I'm not saying that these 2D sections are amazing or anything, because they aren't. What I am saying is that once you can adapt to this thing, I think you can get some pretty decent fun out of it. Now we start to get into the meat of things with B tier. Headlining it is our first Shadow Generation stage, and I'm guessing it's going to be a controversial one. Number 24, Rail Canyon Act 1. Most of my gripes with this level come from the fact that I don't think rails are unique or fun enough to warrant a level in modern day Sonic. Sure, they do some unique stuff with it, but it's not unique enough for me. Every time I'm on the rails, I just hold down boost, switch from time to time. It's not enough action for me. Not in the sense of constant chain-to-chain action, no. I actually like platforming when it's done right in Sonic, but you just aren't doing enough when on rails. Which is a shame, because I think when you're not on rails, it's really good. Even on the rails, it's not like I'm dreading it either, it's just not for me. I like the stage a decent bit, but the rails they just don't do it for me. Number 23, Chaos Island Act 2. This is another one I don't have much to say about. It has a pretty good flow state, but I'm not a big fan of the Doom morph in 2D. I actually quite like it in 3D, which you'll see later, but here, it just doesn't do it for me. One thing I realized while playing was, damn, these backgrounds are really pleasing to the eyes. I caught myself surprisingly enjoying the locale of Chaos Island in this situation. Frontiers being a game in which I think looks pretty awful in any of its islands. Just thought I'd note that. I really like the visuals here. Number 22, Rail Canyon Act 2, just solid all the way through. I'm fine with the rails here because you're not so stationary on them. You're constantly jumping off one and onto the other, or jumping off to hit a spring or dash pad or do a homing attack, and it's all good fun. It's very fun to achieve a nice flow state here, something that can't be said for the past few stages. They get close, but I think this is the start of stages having a really satisfying flow state. Number 21, Modern Crisis City. I'm actually a big fan of this level's approach to platforming. Modern Sonic hasn't always worked well in a 3D platforming scenario, but I think they really hit the mark with this one. It feels really nice to platform in these 3D environments. The visuals are nice, I like the platforming, the speed bits are great. However, I had to dock points because of the 2D section near the end. I think Crisis City could have been near the top if not for the 2D in this level. Most of it is just pretty boring, but that stupid stomp gimmick they used before the end really put a bad taste in my mouth. Nothing short of a total pace breaker. Sure, there's some parts where you can skip it, but it's inevitable that you're going to be stopping a couple of times. And it completely ruins the stage from being one of the greats in my opinion. However, everything else is pretty great, it's just these 2D bits that are pretty standout bullshit, and therefore it had to be knocked down a decent bit on the list. Number 20, Classic Crisis City. Take everything I said about the previous Crisis City and remove the bad 2D part of it. Only reason it's not one of the greats is because, well, truth be told, I just find 3D Sonic more inherently fun than 2D. Doesn't mean some classic stages won't creep near the top though, no, just you wait. But yeah, pretty solid stage. Headlining our A tier, yes, most of these stages are clearly pretty alright. At number 19 is Classic Cityscape. In all honesty, I really love this stage. I think the flow state is really nice. There's lots of parts where you can just keep going with no interruptions, and it makes the stage really fun to come back to and see how long I can maintain my speed. And the other big thing, the gun truck. I'll get onto the modern version later, but I love this version of it infinitely more than the modern one. It's incorporated into the stage much better, and the fact that it's a constant threat, but one that can still be avoided with a skilled enough player is absolutely amazing. Classic Cityscape, and a lot of classics on this list going forward, I consider to be heavily underrated. Number 18, we have Kingdom Valley Act 2. This is a really cool stage that's so fun to casually speedrun. This is one of those stages I can pretty vividly picture in my mind certain bits of. I love all the shortcuts and optimizations you can make. It really makes reaching for that new best time real fun. I also love how we get to see a full inside of the castle, while only shown to us briefly in other Kingdom Valley incarnations. Here we get to see a full interior of a meaty one. Only downside, I don't think the bits inside the castle are consistently great. Those moving pillars didn't really grab my interest that much. I see what they were going for, but it's just not for me. Hey, postscript, Zach here. This one doesn't apply anymore. I actually kind of like these pillars. I'm not gonna rearrange it and rewrite the script to put this in a different spot, because at the end of the day, these rankings don't really matter. They're all arbitrary. Either way, I still like the stage, so doesn't matter. Number 17, Sunset Heights Act 2. This is one of the best 2D Sonic levels ever. I know there's a few better than this, but man, I love this. This level boasts constant action requiring your attention the whole time if you want to maintain top path status. Chaos Spear is used really well. The first time it catches you off guard a little, but the next time you're like, fuck yeah, I saw that coming, yeah! It's just constant action that keeps you on your toes. I especially love the sewer part. I thought the gimmick of the sewer pipe things were great and a really nice incentive to keep up your speed, although I thought they were a little underutilized. I just wish it was a bit longer. If we had full 5 minutes of this, honestly, top 7 stage in the game. Number 16, we've got Radical Highway Act 2. It really caught me off guard when I saw this stage was fully 3D, but I was all for it. I'm gonna cheap out on this one though, because in all honesty, I don't know exactly why I like it. I just do. Only downside is that I thought it could be a bit frustrating, but I'm a big boy, so I'll suck it up and accept it as a skill issue. Number 15, Modern City Escape. I've got a bone to pick with this one. Alright, do I like the stage? Yes, it's in A tier for a reason. The board section is pretty cool, the 3D sections are pretty great, even the 2D section wasn't half bad. But the gun truck, I hate it. I'm gonna be the first to say it. I don't even think this is anything special. The spectacle is cool, I get that, but after I've seen it the 100th time, it does nothing for me. That wouldn't even bother me if the section was at least fun to play, but the illusion was broken once I realized that if you just went in with one ring, you can take your hands off the controller the whole time and be just fine. Even the boost bit at the end, you don't have to boost once, it's all a lie. 1 minute of spectacle and nothing else. And once that spectacle wears off, what do you have? Nothing. Luckily, everything else in the stage is really good, but this chase really puts a sour taste in my mouth if I'm gonna be honest. Please don't crucify me. Number 14, Radical Highway Act 1. Again, I don't know why I like it, but I do! Number 13 is Space Colony Art Act 2. Take everything I said about Kingdom Valley Act 2 and remove the bit I didn't like. There you go. Number 12, Sunset Heights Act 1. I am so glad they gave this stage another shot, although I did wish they used Metropolitan Highway instead, because that level is actually pretty good. Everything is a huge step up from Forces. The bits where you boost are way more interactive, this water stream gimmick I thought was pretty decent. The platforming is nice, it's really fun to just skip over it all as well. I especially love the quick cinematic of Shadow descending into the sewers. It was something they gave us a glimpse of in Forces, but here, they showed it off like a proud father. I love it. It also includes my favorite Radical Highway section. I thought it was really cool. The only reason this isn't S is because just like Sonic Forces, I wish it was longer. How poetic. 2 minutes in, they gave you the Radical Highway bit. They did that with Rail Canyon, but then gave you another minute or two of Rail Canyon once you were shot back out of the mirror dimension. So when the section ended in Sunset Heights, I thought I was in for another minute or two of that, but nope. It ended. If there was another minute or two, I think Sunset Heights would have cracked top 5. But as is, while everything in the stage is great, I just don't think there's enough. And finally, S tier. Headlining it, we have none other than the opening Modern stage, number 11, Modern Green Hill. This level is incredible because of how well it's able to act as both a tutorial and a legitimate level with loads of depth. Depth, that's not a word. Depth, D-E-P-T-H. If you're a beginner, you're gonna be learning the ropes and whatnot, but once you come back, you realize there's a surprising amount of depth to this stage. I said it wrong again. I can't say it, guys. I'm sorry. Almost like it's greeting you, saying, welcome back, you're gonna be here a while, break the fucking bridge. The different pathways are all great. The 2D section before the big chomper section I thought was absolutely incredible. It felt amazing to just soar through the air and maintain momentum. Plenty of places to hit some nice drifts, the visuals are outstanding, it's just really amazing. What a way to start out S tier. Number 10, Modern Rooftop Run. Take basically everything I said about Green Hill and you've got another great stage. I think these two are pretty interchangeable spots for me, but personally I absolutely adore the locale of Rooftop Run, and for that it's bumped up a spot. I love most everything about this stage. The big drift, you know the one. The quick step section, running on rooftops, it's incredible. Sonic being put in a real-world locale isn't a bad idea at all, because if anything, the scale of said locale really puts emphasis on how fucking fast and cool Sonic is, and for that, Rooftop Run is just really stand out. However, The only reason this isn't higher up is because of that flying robot machine, whatever you want to call it, section. I'm really not a fan of this. Sure, boosting into Badniks to hit them at the flying machine is pretty satisfying, but it's still pretty boring in my opinion. However, it's pretty quick and painless, so it doesn't knock off much points. Number 9. Modern Chemical Plant. I've always been a pretty huge fan of the Chemical Plant locale, which made it a shame to put down classic Chemical Plant like a dog. However, out of all the reincarnations of Chemical Plant, I think this is easily the best. A natural evolution of Chemical Plant concepts blended in with the wonderful modern design philosophies. The splitting paths at the beginning are a definite highlight. I love the left path where you can hit a nearly frame-perfect lightspeed dash to skip a chunk of the level, but it comes with great risk as, you know, a nearly frame-perfect lightspeed dash. Another thing I absolutely adore about this level is the moment-to-moment narrative. When you start, the Chemical Plant is intact as you'd expect, however as Sonic runs through it, more and more things go wrong. Towers begin to topple and lean on one another, a terrible leak occurs making the water rise until eventually everything reaches its breaking point as an explosion happens causing a chain reaction. The place is up in flames, everything's chaotic, and I think it's an absolutely brilliant way of storytelling. This is something that Arsenal Period from Forces really needed. So yeah, Modern Chemical Plant is amazing, enough said. At number 8, we have Classic Sky Sanctuary. Bet you were expecting this, huh? That little thing I said about flow at the beginning of the video comes back to haunt us, because it just so happens that this is a Sonic level with possibly the greatest flow state 2D Sonic has to offer. The spin dash jump combined with the Badnik bouncing allows for some of the most beautiful skips to be made, and it never fails satisfying me each time. I know a lot of you assumed most of the classic stages would be relegated to the bottom 10, and, well, you're right, to an extent. I do think you guys sleep on Classic a bit too much. There are some gems here. Number 7, Classic Rooftop Run. What is this, some kind of black magic? This caps off the last of the classic levels in this list, and my god, I adore this level. While the flow state, I would say, isn't as perfect as Classic Sky Sanctuaries, it more than makes up for it in locale and set pieces. We all know how it starts. You do a bit of titular rooftop running, but then we get a little silly. A detour into this massive, wine cellar? I don't know. It doesn't really matter because it's awesome. It's a part of this location we haven't seen before, and by god, you will never catch me complaining about a location in the Sonic franchise getting fleshed out. This segment's fun. So is the... I've already made the rooftop running bit. I've really backed myself into a corner here. But the fun doesn't end here. No. I think the clock tower as a set piece is utilized way better here than it is in the modern stage. Don't get me wrong, it was amazing there, but there really wasn't too much of a climb. 1 second you're in the city, next, oh, I'm going up the tower, oh, I'm down the tower now. It's a cool visual, sure, but it doesn't feel like a view that was necessarily earned per se. In classic Rooftop Run, you climb this thing, and first off, the level design of it's pretty good. It's more platformer than runner, but it works all the same because it's done really well. And then you get to the top where you actually grab one of the hands before launching into the middle, doing a spin dash and messing everything up as an Eggman ship gets hit by the malfunctioning clock, and then you go onto the ship. Oh, it's so dynamic. I love it so goddamn much. Number 6, Space Colony Art Act 1. I have got to take a shit. What an incredible introduction to Shadow Generations. The amount of quality packed in here is insanely impressive. First off, on a normal run, it's already fun. The level design is great on its own, but the speedrunning and shortcut potential here is amazing. There doesn't seem to be a second where I'm not constantly on the move, changing routes and planning where to go next. Something is always happening, and that's what makes this stage so engaging. I also adore the section indoors. In this one giant room, there's probably 4 or more routes, and I know for certain there's several different ways to tackle them. I find speedrunning this stage really fun because of all the tiny optimizations I can make. It's really thrilling sometimes to just shave a second off your run. Not to mention, this stage introduces Black Doom's hyperfixation, and it starts out with a bang. Second best Radical Highway section, in my opinion. Number 5, Modern Speed Highway. This is it. The definition of flow state. It's hard to stretch my review of this stage out because that's it. The flow of the stage is perfect. If you know what you're doing, you won't stop moving, period. I think this might be the most fun stage to speedrun casually. I really do. It's non-stop action. I love it. Amazing! Number 4, Modern Seaside Hill. This is the gold standard for modern Sonic levels for me. The amount of pathways on this bad boy is absolutely ridiculous. I still find out about new ones to this day because there's so much packed into this. The shortcuts here are incredible. You could just basically skip every 2D section, and not to mention before what I said about flow. This stage has it in spades. Again, always on the move constantly. I've always preferred slightly more open levels compared to full linear, and in terms of openness, I love it. I adore Seaside Hill to death. Number 3, Modern Kingdom Valley. At a certain point, it gets hard to rank these because top 5 spots are all pretty much perfect, and then I end up repeating myself. Amazing speedrun potential, great shortcuts, outstanding level design, the whole 9 yards. I love how many small optimizations there are on this stage. There's these shortcuts that seriously may only shave off like a second or two, but I love that because sometimes that's all you need to feel satisfied. An extra second shaved off. Absolutely amazing. Number 2. Modern Sky Sanctuary. This caps off Sonic Generations modern levels, and wow, a bang it does go off with. The more I play this level, the more and more I adore it. For me, this level perfectly harmonizes platforming and speed. If you platform well, you can not only do it quickly, but maintain your higher route, meaning you actually do less platforming. And the platforming at the top is great too. I really do like platforming in Sonic when it's done well. I really love the bouncy clouds here. They're really fun. Not a second is wasted in this stage. There's always something for you to be looking out for or prepare for. The shortcuts all feel great. I especially love the zipline one. That's something really unique that they've never done again. If you would have asked me a month ago what my favorite generation stage was, it probably would have been Speed Highway, but I've grown a sickening amount of fondness towards Sky Sanctuary and a newfound appreciation for all it has to offer. Number 1. I've made sure to replay this stage a bunch of times to make sure it's not recency bias. A lot of you will probably disagree and hate me, but that's fine. My favorite stage in Sonic X Shadow Generations is Chaos Island Act 1. I'm gonna get this out of the way because this is the main complaint towards the stage. What about the Doom Morph? I love it. I think the hatred towards this thing spawned from the fact that it wasn't taught very well in game, but the thing is, once you actually do learn how to use this thing, it is orgasmic. You can hold down the button for a full swing, but if you come in at the perfect angle, you can simply press it and you'll go flying at an optimal direction, saving you a second from the full swing. This thing has its jank moments, I won't lie, however, looking past that is very easy, because I think the platforming and speed challenges they've done with it feel absolutely tailor-made for its strengths. Now, the actual level design. You've probably picked up on this, but my ideal way to play a Sonic game is to casually speedrun. Mostly glitchless runs based completely on tiny optimizations and routing, and this level scratches that exact itch to a T. There are countless opportunities to shave seconds off your run. You'll be able to fly over small portions of the level, but the thing is, that's not a bad thing because you have to earn those skips. You can't just fly over with ease or anything. Sonic GT gets a pass because it's the greatest game ever made and it was going for its own thing. That being said, even without the skips and whatnot, the actual level design is nothing short of amazing. It's decently open, which is always a win in my book, plus the whole 9 yards of what I've mentioned before. Great flow state, amazing visuals and set pieces, all that. To me, this is one of, if not the greatest Sonic level of all time. And whether that's a controversial opinion or not, who am I kidding? It is. Until next time, I'm exhausted and have to take a shit. I hope you all enjoyed. Like and subscribe. Do all that bullshit. Follow, join the Discord. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.